Hi, hello, welcome to the video. So my allergies are flaring up once again. They're pretty terrible. For those of you who don't have seasonal allergies, not fun at all. For those of you who didn't see last video though, what I did was I spun a wheel with all 30 NBA teams on it, and whatever team it landed on, I had to say something about. And so I talked a tiny bit about the Bucks and then a lot about their Nuggets. So we've done 2 teams so far. But yeah, I just thought I would continue with this system because there's a lot of teams that I have thoughts on, but none where I'm just like, I need to make a video about just this team right now. So I just kind of want to, go with the flow, talk about whatever team comes up. All right, Thunder. Okay. Well, the Thunder have been pretty good, much like some other teams that a lot of us anticipated were going to be tanking this season. The main development for them has been SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, their best player. He's really taken another step up this season so far. The past couple of years, he's been leading the league in drives to the rim per game. So he has, a very slashing guard type of play style. And this season, it seems like he's added a whole new dimension to his game with his outside shot. At least a week or two ago, I saw his shooting numbers were looking really good. I don't know if they've fallen off at all. And no, they haven't. He's right at 40% from 3 right now, 55% from the field. So I don't know if that will sustain at that type of level, but if SGA is, going to be shooting like league average even, especially with a lot of his attempts coming off the dribble, that's a really scary development for other teams in the Western Conference. And Dort has continued to look really good defensively. Josh Giddey, still fun playmaker. He needs to work on his outside shot, though. That would be a good development for him. Yeah, I don't anticipate the Thunder staying, where they're at in the standings, which is, I guess, 11th. Maybe they'll end up there. They're 7-8, though, so I don't think they'll be very close to 500 by the end of the year. They'll probably be around the 30 win mark, would be my guess. But who knows with this season, honestly, how things will develop. Yeah, the Thunder are a fun young team. I'm excited to see what they can do once Chet comes back, to have his true rookie season next year, because he's going to be out all this season, obviously. So yeah, that's something to watch. Next team, Kings. Okay. This is actually a pretty good one because I just watched the second half of their game last night against the Spurs. De'Aaron Fox has looked amazing. I know it feels like I'm just talking about point guards now, but De'Aaron Fox has been leading the league in crunch time scoring and efficiency for that matter. I think he's shooting like 64% on his crunch time baskets, which I think what qualifies crunch time is just under 5 minutes to go in a single digit difference game. Just from the games that I've watched, he seems like he can get whatever he wants in the mid-range this year. He's not quite as just insanely fast as he was, early in his career, in his first couple seasons. He might have been like just the straight up fastest player from end to end with the ball in his hands that I've ever seen. He's still faster than 99% of the people out there, but I don't think he has the same, superhuman speed necessarily. He's filled out his frame a little bit, has a little bit more weight on him, which he utilizes with his back to the basket in the mid-range. He kind of goes to that mid-range post-up game, kind of reminiscent of that prototypical Jordan, Kobe, Kawhi, DeMar DeRozan, that play style, which has been interesting to see. And usually a player that excels in that specific skill set is oftentimes going to be amongst the best closers in the game, because those are literally the hardest shots to defend in all of basketball. By definition, they're already the least efficient. They have the worst favorable ratio of difficulty to reward because they're only worth 2 points instead of 3, but the difficulty is a lot higher than most other 2-point shots. So usually those are the type of shots that you want to force other teams to make, other players to make, just in general. But the few players in the league that are marksmen in that area or can make those at like a reliable efficiency are going to be the hardest players to stop. They might not have like the absolute best highs throughout the game all the time because like their play style isn't the most efficient, like I just said. It's a really efficient version of an inefficient play style, if that makes sense. Usually like the guys that just put up insane stats, think Giannis or Russ or, a lot of guys like that, are more the end-to-end, get a lot of their points in transition, attacking the basket, that type of stuff. It's hard to stop like throughout the entire game. It's hard to take that away. But in a crunch time scenario where the defense is very, very keyed in, and also just there's less end-to-end action because teams are taking longer to get to their shots, really because of the uptick in defense, that just causes the game to slow down and it becomes half-court set versus half-court set. So in those situations, just putting your head down and trying to get to the rim becomes a lot less doable or accessible, I guess, or reliable maybe is the best word. And, at a certain point in crunch time, time, it doesn't matter how many points you're getting, just as long as you're scoring, if you know what I mean. Like, that's the reason why mid-range jumpers are a lot of times even more valuable than 3-point shots in the clutch, because the difference doesn't really matter in the 3 versus the 2. In mass volume throughout the course of a game, you want to be taking more 3s than 2s, because sure, you're going to make less of the 3s, but you'll score more points as a result. And in the crunch time scenario, you don't really care about scoring more points just as long as you're scoring. So the mid-range jumper is actually a more valuable shot in that scenario because it's slightly more efficient just in terms of going in, just in terms of getting points on the board and making the shot. So, it's in that range where it's actually feasible that a player can become very dominant or very skilled at taking really tough contested shots from that distance, from the mid-range distance. You're far enough out so you're not like smothered with defenders that can all just pack the paint with you. So you have enough space to be out in the mid-range where you're kind of isolated. You're on an island. There's only one guy defending you. Then also it's not too far out to where it's just unrealistic to, make the same kind of moves that a mid-range marksman does, or, just a guy who's really effective at scoring in the mid-range. It's unrealistic to rely on those moves behind the 3-point line because that's just a much more difficult shot to hit when you're so tightly defended. I guess I'm kind of explaining why 3-pointers are so valuable too throughout the course of the game. Like, it's much easier to get open 3-point looks than it is open mid-range looks. And plus the factor of it's an additional point is even probably the bigger thing. But the reason why it's easier to get open looks from 3 is because there's just more space to do so. You're farther out. The defense has more ground to cover. So when the defense is helping or collapsing, or, defensive attention is drawn toward a certain action in a play, then people who are on the other side of the court behind the 3-point line are left open. It's much easier to get the ball to them before the defense can actually recover and get out there to defend the shot. So yeah, there's a detailed explanation of why, I guess there's the difference between the mid-range shot and the 3-point shot, what the pros and cons are, why the 3-pointer is favored just in general in a vacuum throughout most moments of a game. But in the clutch, it's actually the mid-range jumper that decides games a lot of times. Well, really just when you have a player that is that effective in the mid-range is when it comes into play, but which there's not necessarily a surplus of those players. But De'Aaron Fox is looking like he might be ascending into that class. And I've heard this season about how that's been one of De'Aaron's struggles in the past, has been his performance down the stretch of games, which I actually wasn't crazy aware of. I feel like I've heard those things from other people, but every Kings game that I've watched down the stretch, I just have a lot of memories of Fox scoring in the mid-range down the stretch of games. I haven't seen the most amount of Kings games in the past couple of years, but from what I have seen from Fox, I kind of have noticed that in the past before. But this season, definitely much easier to see. I've probably seen 4 or 5 Kings games, like the endings of them, and it's very easy to see this season that Fox is getting kind of whatever he wants in the mid-range. So yeah, that's my thing on De'Aaron Fox. Sabonis has looked pretty decent on the Kings, I guess. I haven't paid too much attention to a lot of the other guys there, honestly. Malik Monk has, he's kind of showing flashes of his playmaking. I think he's fitting in really well with the Kings. Kevin Huerter is a shooter. They've got a pretty good rotation there. And now they're 8-6, just noticing, which they start off at least 0-4, maybe 0-5. I can't remember. It took them a while to win a game. They were the main team in the over-under video, if you guys remember, that I was like, the over-under for them is way too low. It should be higher. I think their over-under was like 33 wins, something like that. And I had them at about 38, which, so, 5-game difference, but, that was the biggest difference that I did see in all of the spreads for my predictions to the actual over-under line. So, it's decently significant, I would say. And I definitely would have put a bet on the Kings to hit their over if sports betting was legal in Nebraska. But, so yeah, I think that will happen. And with the Lakers seeming to kind of be out of it right now, maybe the Kings even make the playoffs. Who knows? Let's try to squeeze another team in here really quick. Pelicans. Okay. Have these all been Western Conference teams? I guess I got the Bucks first. But then I got the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Kings, and now the Pels. Which Pelicans are 9-6 right now. Zion has looked really good for them. Their lineups haven't been the greatest, which is kind of what I was thinking coming into it, because they don't have a lot of flexibility with their lineups, just because their top 5 guys aren't really a traditional lineup. Because they have, one traditional center in Jonas Valanciunas, and they have Zion, who's kind of like a mix between a big man and a wing, I guess. And Brandon Ingram and Herb Jones, 2 more big wings. And then CJ McCollum, who's like an undersized shooting guard. So CJ's kind of like the de facto point guard at that point. But, they've been mixing it up lately. I think they've started running Jose Alvarado, maybe even starting. I don't even know, to be honest, if that's happened. Yeah, it looks like he's actually started 2 games so far now. I would like to see when they were, though, I don't know. My computer's not working. The page isn't loading to see his game logs. But it looks like he started 2 of the games this year, and I'm guessing they were more recent. So maybe they moved Herb Jones to the bench to start the game and just slid in Alvarado at the point guard because, he's more of a traditional point guard, and he's really effective defensively. He's kind of like a Patrick Beverley, to be honest. Just younger. But yeah, the Pels are definitely a team that I like watching. We'll try to tune into more games. I just really like watching Zion play, to be honest. Nothing too surprising, I guess, with their season so far, I would have to say. They're at the 5th seed right now. I think I probably would have thought they would be somewhere between 4 and maybe 7, I guess, in terms of seeding. So no surprise there. That can probably be it for this video. Tune in next time to hear me talk about some other teams, hopefully with a less stuffed nose, because this is awful. So stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.